Rachel McKinley's hands shook faintly as she counted the crumpled cash in her wallet, $23.47, all that was left after settling the heating bill earlier that day. Beyond the small apartment window, snowflakes spun in the frigid Jacksonville, North Carolina night, Christmas Eve lights shimmering off their icy surfaces. "Mom, are we still going out?" Lily asked, her 7-year-old face peeking hopefully around the doorway. Behind her stood Noah, 5 years old and clutching the well-worn stuffed bear his father had given him before his final deployment. Rachel tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and managed a smile. At 29, she looked closer to 40, her face marked with the quiet strength of someone familiar with adversity but unwilling to yield to it. "Yes, we're going," she replied, zipping Noah's jacket and adjusting Lily's red knit hat. It's Christmas Eve, after all. 3 years had gone by since the military chaplain and the casualty officer had knocked on her door with the news that shattered her world. Sergeant Michael McKinley, lost in a transport accident leaving behind a young wife and 2 small children. The life insurance had barely covered the funeral and chipped away at their medical bills, vanishing swiftly under the daily costs of survival. Now, Rachel worked nights at a nearby convenience store, serving strangers while her kids slept under the care of Mrs. Abernathy, their kindly neighbor. Every cent was tracked, every purchase debated, every indulgence postponed without end. But Christmas Eve called for something different, a tiny spark of joy her children could carry through the cold months ahead. A real dinner at a restaurant, even just once a year. The Cornerstone Diner stood on Main Street, its windows fogged with warmth against the icy air. Rachel had chosen it carefully. The menu offered a kids' special for $5.99, which meant all 3 could eat for just under $20, including a modest tip. The bell above the door jingled as they stepped inside. Lily's eyes grew wide at the festive decorations, while Noah pointed excitedly at the dessert case. Rachel led them to a booth in the back, trying not to draw attention. A waitress dropped off water and menus, smiling faintly before hurrying to another group in the far corner. 2 young men in casual attire that couldn't quite mask their military posture sat sipping from cups of coffee. Rachel ordered the smallest adult entree for herself and kids' meals for the children. As the waitress walked away, the diner's owner, Mr. Grant, emerged from the kitchen. His eyes scanned the dining room, halting when they landed on Rachel's table. He strode over, his face growing darker with each step. "Excuse me," he said, his voice directed toward Carrie. "Those children better not make a mess." Rachel gave a quick nod. "They won't, sir. They know how to behave." Mr. Grant's gaze narrowed as it took in her frayed coat and the kids' patched-up clothes. "Can you even afford to eat here?" The dining area went silent. Other patrons shifted uncomfortably, suddenly engrossed in their meals. "Yes," Rachel whispered, "I have enough." "This isn't a shelter," Mr. Grant said louder. "This isn't a place for single moms and starving kids. We run a decent business." Noah's lower lip quivered. Lily stared at the table, her cheeks flushed with shame. Rachel rose slowly, her dignity intact despite the sting of humiliation on her face. "We'll leave. I'm sorry for troubling you." One of the young Marines half stood, but his companion grabbed his arm. "Not now, Martinez, not tonight." Rachel led her quiet children toward the door, snowflakes already piling up on the sidewalk. Not one voice spoke up for them. Kind people often pay the highest price, but sometimes it's the only way they know. Can such quiet grace stir the rightness in other people's hearts? Rachel closed the apartment door behind them, the thin heat inside barely easing the chill deep in her bones. It wasn't the winter cold that gripped her, it was the look on her children's faces as they were ushered out of the diner, their confusion and shame etched in innocence. "I'm not even hungry," Lily declared, trying to sound brave. Noah looked up at her. "Did we do something bad?" Rachel knelt to his level, her hands resting gently on his small shoulders. "No, love. Some people just forget how to be kind." She moved to the kitchenette and opened a cardboard box on the counter. Christmas cookies from the church pantry, slightly dry but decorated in bright red and green icing. She broke them into pieces and placed them on a plate with exaggerated care. "Look," she said with a strained cheer. "Christmas cookies for dinner. That's better than restaurant food, right?" The children nodded, playing along with her make-believe feast born from necessity. As they nibbled the crumbly treats, Rachel's eyes wandered to a cardboard box in the corner. It held their most cherished items, photo albums and keepsakes from Michael that wouldn't fit on the sparse shelves. On top was a framed picture of a smiling Marine in dress uniform, his eyes crinkling just like Noah's when he laughed. Across the bottom, in Michael's familiar handwriting, "For those we leave behind." Morning came with unexpected developments someone at the diner had been recording. Mr. Grant's angry moment on the phone was caught on video, which quickly circulated across local social media platforms, drawing reactions with every repost. "Who does she think she is, parading her kids around for pity dinners?" one person wrote. "So entitled. Restaurants aren't babysitters," said another. But not everyone agreed. "I've been in her shoes, only I didn't have two little ones relying on me," shared one commenter. "Those kids behaved better than most regular diners." In a private online forum for Marine Corps veterans, the clip sparked a very different dialogue. A user going by desert_dog_78 posted, "McKinley. Wasn't that a Marine from the Fallujah tour?" That single message triggered a flurry of responses. Records checked, contacts traced. Within hours, Major John H. Reeves, currently posted at Camp Lejeune near Jacksonville, received a message with the video and a name he hadn't heard in a long time. "Sir, isn't this Sergeant McKinley's widow? The one who rescued Thompson and Rodriguez from the burning Humvee?" Meanwhile, Mr. Grant issued a short statement to the local press addressing the backlash. "My business reserves the right to deny service to anyone. We uphold certain standards." Rachel stayed quiet during the growing uproar, unaware of the digital wave following her family's Christmas Eve embarrassment. When a local journalist reached out, she politely declined to respond. Instead, she brought her children to the community church service and quietly volunteered to wash dishes for the holiday meal project. As she scrubbed pots in the kitchen, Lily and Noah played with other children whose families came for the complimentary Christmas dinner. "Your mom's helping out a lot," the kitchen manager told them. "You must be proud of her." Lily gave a serious nod. "She says when you've been hungry, you should help feed people if you can. Some folks don't seek the spotlight. They just want to be understood. If you believe thankfulness should never fade, type respect." On the day after Christmas, Rachel sat at her tiny kitchen table staring at the utility bill stamped with a final warning: service cutoff imminent. The notice detailed the extra winter fees that had pushed her tight budget over the edge. She folded it quickly and slipped it into her pocket as Lily and Noah emerged from their room. "Is it still cold today?" Noah asked, wrapping his blanket tighter. "Just a little," Rachel replied, though the apartment's thermostat was turned down to 62 degrees to save money. "We'll snuggle later under blankets and read stories. It'll feel cozy." Lily looked up at her mother thoughtfully. "Mom, would Dad know about what happened at the restaurant? Can he see us from heaven?" Rachel's voice caught. "I think he sees what really matters," she said softly. Across town, the Cornerstone Diner was bustling with its usual post-Christmas lunchtime crowd. Mr. Grant moved from table to table, chatting with familiar patrons and managing his staff with his typical stern energy. The video had stirred a few negative remarks online, but his loyal clientele appeared mostly unfazed, until a dark green military vehicle pulled up outside. Conversation stopped as two Marines in formal dress blues stepped inside. Unlike the more relaxed off-duty military faces common in Jacksonville, these men walked with purpose. They didn't sit or order takeout. They scanned the room, one nodding to the other, who stepped out and returned with a third man, Major John H. Reeves, his rank insignia catching the overhead light. Mr. Grant came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" "Mr. Grant?" Major Reeves asked. It wasn't really a question. "We'd like a moment of your time." Once seated in a booth at the back, the Major took a photo from an envelope and placed it gently on the table. "Do you recognize this Marine?" Mr. Grant glanced at the image, a smiling man in battle gear, arm slung over a fellow soldier amid a dusty backdrop. "Should I?" "Sergeant Michael McKinley, killed 3 years ago, left behind a wife and 2 children. the Major replied, his tone steady and professional. The same family you turned away on Christmas Eve. Mr. Grant's face paled. I didn't know who they were. Exactly, Major Reeves said. You had no clue that Sergeant McKinley pulled 5 Marines out during an ambush, that he earned the Bronze Star after death, that the woman you shamed has held down 2 jobs just to keep her kids fed since he died. The Major leaned forward just slightly. We Marines have known hunger too, Mr. Grant, but we've never denied another hungry soul, especially not the family of one who gave everything. By afternoon, a notice showed up in the diner's glass approved by the nearby veterans group. It plainly stated refuse service to the children of a fallen hero. Business disappeared. Regular customers found other places for coffee. Holiday travelers saw the notice and walked away. By evening, Mr. Grant stood in an empty restaurant. The financial toll of his choice became undeniably evident at her apartment. Rachel found an envelope that someone had tucked beneath her door. Inside was a handwritten letter on Marine Corps stationery. Mrs. McKinley, we once owed your husband our lives now. We know how to repay that debt. Semper Fi isn't merely a phrase. It's a promise to our own. Michael's brothers. Accompanying the letter was a package holding grocery gift cards, warm winter clothing in the children's sizes, and an educational savings bond for each child that evening, as Noah slipped into his brand new coat, dark blue with red stripes, just the way he'd wished. He looked up at his mother with serious eyes. Mom, can I be a Marine someday like Dad? Rachel knelt beside him, straightening the collar of his jacket as tears threatened to spill. Only if you learn to guard others the way these Marines protected us. Lily joined their huddle, clutching her arms around Mom's neck. We don't need that restaurant anyway, she whispered. We have each other when fairness doesn't arrive from courts. It comes through hearts of people who know what loss feels like. If you still believe in ultimate justice, type yes. Spring arrived in Jacksonville, thawing winter's harsh memories. Rachel's world had shifted in ways she could never have predicted that snowy Christmas Eve. The Marines' intervention hadn't stopped. With the gift box, 2 weeks after the incident, Rachel received a call from Camp Lejeune's Family Services office, offering her a part-time position as a kitchen assistant supervisor for the new recruits' mess hall. The hours worked perfectly around her children's school schedule. The wages were notably higher than her convenience store job, and the base provided transportation. We need someone who understands what these young Marines need. The coordinator had explained someone who understands service even if they never wore the uniform themselves. Rachel remained in her humble apartment, but it no longer felt like a place of scarcity. Weekends offered invites to events on base. Lily joined a book club organized by officers' spouses, while Noah found himself encircled by honorary uncles, eager to teach him everything from bicycle repair to proper saluting technique. On her small living room wall displayed 2 pictures. The first showed Michael in his dress blues, his smile forever preserved. Beside it, a new picture, Rachel and her children standing among a gathering of Marines, standing tall, all rendering a solemn salute toward Michael's photo. The simple frame carried an etched plaque. You didn't just lose him, you inherited all of us. The Cornerstone Diner eventually reopened under new management, a former Marine gunny sergeant who had served with Michael. His first action was to establish a heroes table, always reserved for families of fallen service members. His second was to hire Rachel as a weekend manager, transforming her disgrace into leadership. Mr. Grant had sold the business after 2 months of community boycott, moving to another town where his Christmas Eve actions weren't common knowledge. Before leaving, he'd left an unsigned card with a substantial gift certificate at Rachel's door, a sorry note lacking the bravery to confront her in person. Rachel had donated it to the base's family emergency fund one evening. As she oversaw the mess hall cleanup at the base, a young private approached her hesitantly. Mrs. McKinley, I just wanted to say my mother raised me alone too. What happened to you at that diner? We experienced it often. He straightened his shoulders. I used to think the Corps was just about fighting. Now I understand we also stand for those who deserve to be served. Rachel smiled, seeing in his sincere face the same determination she saw daily in her mirror. That's exactly what Michael would have said as she drove home that night. Rachel drove past the diner where their Christmas Eve had unraveled through the windows. She could see families gathered with a few in uniform. The heroes' table had been taken by a young woman with a toddler, another widow receiving honor instead of disgrace. Not all meals are ever served. But we remember them forever for who was turned away and who chose to stand beside them. When I first heard about Rachel's story, it reminded me of my own mother. There were nights when we had nothing but kindness from strangers to hold us over. We never forgot those faces. That's the reason this story counts. Not because it went viral, but because it proves something simple. The toughest folks aren't always dressed in uniform. Sometimes they're the ones just trying to feed their kids. If this story reminded you of someone, share it with them. They deserve to know they're not alone. This isn't a place for single mothers and hungry kids, the diner owner shouted. She embraced her kids and left without a word. No one in the diner spoke up. No one asked them to stay until a Marine truck pulled up outside and 2 Marines walked in. Not there for a meal, how could a refused supper ignite anger in the whole Marine Corps?